There's something ancient about curves in wood. Something primal. A silent echo of rivers, of bones, of wind-shaped stone. Before straight lines, before square rooms and measured planks, the natural world moved in arcs. In soft bends. In loops and coils and graceful, bending forms. And when wood is pushed, coaxed, or carved into curves, real curves, not gentle bevels or polite scrolls, it taps into something far deeper than style. It evokes motion. Emotion. A kind of quiet tension that holds the eye and doesn't let go. This is the world of curved wooden abstract forms. Not furniture. Not sculpture in the traditional sense. Something in between. Something entirely its own. Start with the material, wood, yes, but not the kind you grab off the rack at a hardware store. The kind that demands touch. The kind that holds memory in its grain. Ash that bends like a sigh. Walnut that flows like a shadow. Maple, pale and stubborn, that eventually yields under steam or blade or both. Each species behaves differently. Bends differently. Some resist, cracking under pressure, others give way slowly like stretching muscle. That resistance, that push and pull between the maker and the medium, is what gives these forms their tension, their life. There are two roads to the curve. One is coercion. You take straight-grained wood and force it to bend. With steam, with heat, with pressure. You clamp it in forms and wait. Hours, days, depending on the thickness and species. It's an act of patience, of control. The other road is surrender. You carve the curve out. You follow the grain, sculpting it into spirals and waves, shaving away the straightness until only the flow remains. One method molds the wood to your will. The other listens to what it's already saying. And then comes the form, not just a shape but a presence. These aren't just curves for the sake of decoration. They're movement frozen mid-step. A loop that almost closes. A spiral that never tightens. A ribbon unfurling. A knot loosening in slow motion. A rising arc that lifts the eye upward, then drops it into a shadow. They're gestures, half-formed thoughts, fragments of language in visual form. They don't spell anything out. They imply, suggest, whisper. Sometimes a single curve is enough. One smooth, sweeping shape rising from a plinth or emerging from a wall like something half-submerged. Other times it's a tangle, multiple arcs overlapping, diverging, converging. You might see something that looks like a Mobius strip, or like water caught mid-pour. You might see nothing recognizable at all, just balance, just flow. But you feel it. That's the point. You feel the tension between what's rigid and what's soft. Between what's controlled and what's loose. Surface matters. A lot. A polished curve reflects light in a way that almost makes it look liquid. A matte finish swallows the light, makes the curve feel heavier, moodier. Some pieces are sanded down until the grain runs like a current. Others are left raw, tool marks still visible, reminding you that this wasn't born perfect. It was worked, shaped, formed. That contrast between the smooth and the rough, the refined and the raw, is part of the story. Keeps the eye moving. Keeps the hand wanting to reach out and touch, even if it's not allowed. Some forms hang, suspended in space like echoes of motion. Others rest against walls, or sit on shelves, or mount directly to surfaces where their shadows become part of the design. The negative space matters just as much as the wood itself. A hollow curve draws the eye inward. A loop frames the wall behind it. A folded form casts a double shadow, one sharp, one soft. In many of these works, it's not just about what's present but what's missing. What's left open. What's allowed to breathe. There's no right size for curved abstract forms. Some are palm-sized, intimate, almost like worry stones scaled up to a sculptural level. Others are massive, room-spanning installations that arc overhead or snake along walls like living organisms. The larger they are, the more they command space. Not just visually but emotionally. They shift the way you move around a room. They pull your body into their flow. You walk differently when there's a curve nearby. You soften. You slow down. And this isn't ornamental work. This isn't about filling a blank space or matching a palette. It's about presence. About motion held in stillness. About emotion given shape without ever needing to be named. And the people who create these forms? They're not always sculptors in the traditional sense. They're often woodworkers who grew tired of right angles, of purpose-bound builds. They wanted to explore form for form's sake, to see what wood could do when it wasn't being asked to serve. Sometimes the curves evoke nature, waves, branches, shells, bones. Other times they feel completely synthetic, almost futuristic. That's part of the allure. They sit at a crossroads between the organic and the invented. They're neither one nor the other. They're both. And that duality, that ambiguity, is what makes them fascinating. They never resolve. They never settle. They just keep turning in on themselves, folding, bending, inviting. And despite their elegance, there's a primal energy to them. You can feel the force it took to bend the wood, the restraint required to not go further, to stop at just the right moment. The grain swells and twists, catching light differently at every angle. Some forms feel fast, like they might keep moving after you look away. Others feel heavy, rooted, dense with gravity. Each one holds its own kind of silence, its own kind of breath. Collectors and artists both are drawn to this language. It speaks without words. It shifts with the light. In the morning it's one thing. In the afternoon another. From the side it vanishes. From straight on it reveals itself. It's kinetic even when still. And once you start seeing the beauty in it, you begin to notice it everywhere. In the bend of a tree branch, the arc of a bridge, the curl of smoke, the gesture of a sleeping hand. These forms train your eye to seek fluidity, to fall in love with the in-between. Making them isn't fast. There's no rush in this world. No shortcuts. Bending wood takes time. Carving takes even longer. And the failures, because there are always failures, aren't mistakes. They're lessons. A snapped curve might become two new pieces. A warped board might lead to an even better flow. The process isn't linear. It loops just like the forms themselves. Over time you learn to stop fighting. You let the curve lead. In this way, creating curved wooden abstract forms becomes a meditation. A dialogue. The wood speaks. You answer. And somewhere in that conversation, a shape appears. One that's never existed before and never will again in quite the same way. It's not repeatable. Not teachable. Not scalable. It's singular. That's what makes it powerful. And when it's done, when the form is finished and mounted and viewed, it becomes something else entirely. Not just a sculpture, but an atmosphere. A presence. It changes the room it lives in. And if you let it, it changes you too. There's something that happens when wood curves. It changes the way you look at it. Straight planks are stable, predictable, familiar. But bend a piece of wood and suddenly it's not furniture anymore. It's movement. It's sculpture. It's not meant to be sat on or used, it's meant to be looked at, felt, followed. Curved wooden forms don't follow rules. They float. They twist. They push back against the idea that wood is stiff, that it has limits. You heat it, steam it, laminate it, carve it. Sometimes you bend it gently over hours. Other times you cut hard curves from thick stock. Either way, you're doing something wood doesn't want to do, and still making it look natural. And when you pull it off, the results are striking. A curve catches light differently. It casts shadows where a flat edge wouldn't. It invites your eye to move, not just across it, but around it. You don't just look at it. You trace it. You study it. And that's exactly the point. These abstract forms aren't trying to be useful. They're not built to match the couch or blend into the background. They're designed to hold tension. To be the piece that doesn't quite make sense, and that's why it works. Sometimes the whole sculpture is a single loop. A wide wooden ribbon that folds back on itself, no beginning, no end. Sometimes it's a series of arcs, nested but irregular, like motion frozen in mid-swing. You might see echoes of wind, water, flame, natural forces that don't hold still. And somehow, you've captured that in a material that was once locked solid inside a tree. It takes precision. Not just in the cut or the clamp, but in the vision. You can't fake these shapes. The moment the flow is off by a few degrees, the whole piece goes stiff. Dead. You have to feel your way through the curve. Let the line tell you when it's too sharp, when it's too shallow. It's not geometry, it's rhythm. And sometimes the imperfections make it stronger. A slight warp, a ripple in the lamination, a joint that doesn't quite land flush. You leave it. You live with it. Because perfection kills character, and these forms need character to survive. They're not about clean lines. They're about motion, energy, the illusion that they're still moving even when mounted to the wall. You don't frame these. You don't square them up. You give them space. Let them float. A well-lit wall. A dark corner. Suspended from invisible wire. The shadow they cast is part of the piece. It moves as the light changes. It adds depth. Another layer of curve, made from absence instead of wood. And the grain matters. Always. A tight curl of figured maple flows differently than the broad lines of ash. Quartersawn oak can stretch a curve like topography. Walnut adds weight, visually and physically. You choose your material like a painter chooses color. Every ring and line becomes part of the movement. Even in abstract work, grain tells the story. Sometimes you oil them. Sometimes you char them. Sometimes you leave them pale and unfinished. It depends on the voice you want it to have. A dark, blackened arc feels heavy, industrial. A raw birch loop feels light, like breath or thread. Neither is better. They just speak different languages. There are no instructions for building these. No blueprints. Just fragments of shape. You sketch. You test. You bend until it cracks or just before. And when it finally fits, not mathematically but emotionally, lands. It clicks. Not because it matches anything but because it completes itself. And that's what separates curved abstract work from traditional craft. You're not solving a problem. You're asking one. You're making something that doesn't need a label. Doesn't need to match a table. It just needs to pull your eye and not let go. These pieces don't fill space. They reshape it. They don't tell stories directly, but they suggest them. Something organic. Something architectural. Something you can't name but you feel it. It's the kind of work that makes a wall feel like it's no longer flat. Like something is leaning out of it. Moving. Breathing. That's the quiet power of curved wood. Not just in the technique but in the effect. You took something rigid and made it fluid. Something still and made it move.